Hey, good people, this is your NI Dom back with another YouTube reflection. And this is a personal journal for contemplative people looking to think, grow, and have impact in the world. So, hey, I am going to respond to some YouTube content by the person who identifies as LiJo. And she did a video, 3 reasons to stop enabling your TE. I'm not going to recap that. You have to go find that content. I just want to respond to it. And I'll respond to it in a way where I can meander around in my introverted intuition and see what goodies exist there. So, as is customary with my project, it is unedited, it's unscripted, and it is reflective. If you want to know more about me or this project, feel free to go to my website at yournidom.wordpress.com or check out my primary podcast, Your NIDom. So when I hit the play button, there was something about the start of her video that I was like, oh boy, here we go. And her content isn't, she's not a YouTube generator that I listen to on a regular basis, but she is someone that I respect. She's an INTJ, and as a fellow INTJ, I just have a kinship with her. But periodically, I will listen to her content, and I'm never dissatisfied. But at the start of this particular video, I don't remember again what she said, but I was just like, oh boy. But quickly, I realized I was again in sync with her. So I want to just say a couple of things that came up for me as I was listening to her. One thing she talked about is that the TE, extroverted thinking, can get in the way of other people's development, basically. So if you are a TE user, and I'm going to say primarily, I want to say in the top of the stack, but I would imagine if you have T in the lower part of the stack, I guess this can apply to you as well. But because I'm not an expert in this area, I'm not going to dabble in that. But what I am going to talk about is this idea that if you're an extroverted thinker, that you can fix a situation. You might have the answer. Someone is dealing with something, and you find that you have a faster way of doing it or a better way of doing it, and we jump in and we provide the answer. And I want to respond to that piece right there. And one way that I want to respond to it is by a work situation. So I've been talking a lot about this particular assignment that I've been on. I've worked for an organization, and in February, they put me on special assignment, and I'm functioning as a school principal right now. And when I got to this site, when I got to the school in February, there was someone there who was in the position of like a paraprofessional, a teacher's assistant. And I found that she was being deployed in the building in a way that was preventing teachers from developing their craft. So when teachers were struggling with a particular student, they would call her, this paraprofessional, this teacher assistant, and she would go in, and she was quite gifted in what she was doing, and she would go in there and resolve the conflict that was created in the classroom by quote unquote this difficult student. And what I tried to tell her is that while that's great for you because you have this skill, you have no you're not against helping out. You're not against working with the, again, quote unquote, difficult students. What's happening every time you go into a classroom to problem solve one of those difficult situations, you're preventing teachers from developing that skill. You're preventing teachers from developing the skill, and you're preventing teachers from developing the relationship with the students. So every time you go into a classroom and you're dealing with a difficult student, and again, I keep saying, quote, difficult student, because I I take issue with that, but most people understand that. That's the language that most people use. Or let's say it this way, a student who's being difficult. Every time you go in there and you problem solve it, you're doing it by way of relationship, and it strengthens your relationship with that student. So therefore, students begin to depend on the relationship that you have with them. And each time they have an issue with a teacher, they don't have that relationship with the teacher, and that they cannot be resolved or helped until you come along using the relationship that you've developed with them. And the teacher, again, does not get to develop the relationship, nor does the teacher get to develop the skill. And this was a hard conversation to have with this particular assistant, because she's really, really good, and she's really passionate, and she's really committed. And that was just a hard thing to say. Like, I'm not saying what you're doing is wrong, that we don't want you to have that relationship with students. I'm not saying we don't want you to develop that skill with students. What we do want the teachers who get paid maybe 4 times as much as you get paid, the teachers who in an interview said, I can teach all kids, the teachers who say they went to school to help and have a relationship with all kids, we want those teachers to be able to develop the skills and develop the relationships. And that's one of the things that I thought about. That's one of the things I thought about as I was listening to LiJo talking about that TE will get in the way of someone else developing the skills necessary. I thought about this particular assistant right away. And so I really do agree with LiJo. When we jump in to provide the answer, what we do is limit someone else's development. And I'm going to tell you from learning sciences says that we grow in what's called cognitive dissonance. When there is a struggle, that's when we grow new brain cells and we develop skills. So every time you move in to offer someone else a solution or the answer, you are truly preventing them from developing brain cells and new competencies. So that was one thing that I thought of. The other thing I thought about, she also talked about developing I don't know if she called it a squad, a team of people who become dependent on you, because now you're the person that has the answer. And that very much happened to me in a way that I've talked about it, but not in the sense of extroverted thinking. So the way I've talked about this in the past is that my friends, and I went through a shift in how I did friendships. But before I went through that shift, all of my friends had become dependent on me to be that critical voice for them that was going to push them forward, right? So they have a situation, they were stuck in their development, and I would say something that would push them further along. I would say something that would challenge them and give them insight as to this is what you need to do. And I did it a lot, mainly because I think that when you have a skill or a strength or a gift, it overflows. You don't have to work hard. You actually have to work hard to not use it. So I am a person that I have a unique perspective. I'm trained in doing human development work, and I'm a TE user. Again, I never looked at it through the lens of TE. And so when my friends would call me with a situation, I would be the one to, like a critical parent, like, yo, this is what you need to do. Why aren't you doing that? Here are some strategies. Remember, we talked about this before. You haven't done what you said you were going to do, and really would push them forward. What happened, though, is that that relationship was defined based on me pushing them for their growth. And I never was on the receiving end of that. So I was the advisor. I was the teacher. And when I was younger, it didn't bother me. I didn't even think about it until I got to a place where I was like, this relationship is lopsided. because I need to continue to grow. I can't keep investing in you. I need you also to invest in me. And friend after friend after friend told me, I don't have that skill. You have it. So I can't give you that. That's something that you do. And while I do believe that's something I do really well, and there's something unique about the way I do it, I was frustrated that I'm like, even if you don't have the skill, I'm going to need you to try. Because like you, I too want to grow. I too want to believe that you're invested in my growth. And I got so frustrated that those friends are no longer in my inner circle. Do I love them? Yes. But I don't have time for one-sided relationships. And so the last thing I want to say is to this point that I don't know if I think this, I guess if I was going to disagree with LiJo on one point, it would be, I don't know if that's about TE. I don't know if it's about extroverted thinking, even though I get it, even though I'm like, oh, it is a skill that we can use. I actually think it's about ego. And it's about ego at a particular developmental stage. Because every time you help someone, every time you give someone the solution, while it looks like it helps the other person, it actually reinforces your identity as a problem solver. I listened to a young lady on YouTube, and I cannot think of her name, but she said INTJs are finishers. We will finish a thing. And some people call me a fixer, right? Every time I go in and I finish something or I fix something, that reinforces my identity. Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, I'm the fixer. Yeah, I'm a finisher. And so when we move forward and we have this need, and we have this compulsory need to solve other people's problems and to give the solutions, I think it's more about us needing to feed our ego, us needing to feed our identity more than it is about us, and more than it is about us being or what did she say? LiJo said a pet. I think she said a pet to the TE, kind of like, I hate to say the word slave, but just a subject of extroverted thinking. I think it's more about us being a subject to our ego, because I've seen FE users do this as well. They move in to offer and answers. They do it for different reasons, but they still offer solutions. And they do it in a way that prevents the other person from going through their own cognitive dissonance, going through their own struggles. So I would say that's the only thing I would disagree. I don't know if that's about extroverted thinking as much as it is about ego, and it's about a certain developmental stage, right? That you still need to feel like you still need to develop your identity. I was going to say this right quick and I'm going to be done. I dated this guy. Well, we thought about dating, but we ended up being friends. And I remember saying to him, well, you don't argue with me the way other guys argue with me. And he said, that's because I'm secure with myself. He said, more than likely, those other guys are arguing with you because they're not yet established in terms of who they are. I'll never forget that. And I think that's what happens. When you are really secure with yourself and you don't need to reinforce your ego, you would not jump in there to solve other people's problems and give them the answers. That's not about them. That's about you. And when you get secure with yourself and your ego, you'll realize that. You guys, it has been a pleasure hanging out with you again. Check out my website and my podcast, Your NIDOM. It has been a pleasure hanging out with you until I come back. Be well. Bye.